everybody. I want to welcome you to Radio Arizona RV, the RV education and maintenance show. And this is Eric Stark, your host. So today is episode number 42. And I'm going to be talking about RV power converters. Everybody knows what those are. I hope, I believe that's what converts the 110 volts to 12 volts to charge up your batteries, and your batteries in turn run your interior lights and so forth, lights and electrical or 12 volt fans, whatever might be 12 volts that needs that constant power source. So before I get into this, for the power converters, I just want to remind everybody to go to radioarizonarv.com and sign up for my newsletter. You know, I send it out on a regular basis, and it's not going to fill up your inbox with spam. It's a purposeful newsletter. It's going to have information, episodes I've talked about, you know, nuggets of information that are going to help you, you know, during different times of the year, discounts for purchases on our website, such as Arizona RV Parts Center and SunPro Manufacturing. But I will not send you emails every day, every week. You know, I've signed up for newsletters, and, you know, it's just overload. Next thing I know, I've got, you know, 5 emails a day from the same company every day, or 3 a day. It's just crazy. It's relentless. It's like, what are they thinking? They're trying to drive me away? Well, that's not what I'm going to do with you if you sign up for my newsletter. So keep that in mind. Go to radioarizonarv.com. Scroll down the page, and there it is. There's a newsletter. Just sign up for it. Pretty unintrusive. So that's my little advertisement here for this show, pretty much. I'm going to stick with the power converters. There's a lot here to talk about, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish it. It might carry over into a part 2 episode, which would be episode number 43 if I do carry it over. But also future episodes, I'm going to talk about RV covers. We're going into wintertime. Well, yeah, we're going into wintertime, someplace a little bit colder than where we're at in Victor, Montana. And battery storage, you know, how to store your battery for the wintertime. There's a lot of theories out there. There's a lot of information that I would say is some correct, some incorrect. And batteries are expensive, so you want to store them right the first time, not turn into something where you pulled out of storage and you're buying 2 new batteries because you did something wrong. It's about extending the life of those batteries. And also LP detectors inside the RV. I know I've talked about these in the past, but just getting inundated with LP detector problems lately. So I want to, you know, just maybe reiterate some points on that. And, you know, of course, my episodes are based on conversations with my customers, things that are kind of trending right now in my business, maybe not the rest of the world, but I would think so. But so that's where I kind of sometimes will repeat episodes, go back to things that I've talked about, because all of a sudden it comes back to the surface. So I'm not trying to bore you with anything, but these are just topics that our customers or my customers are talking about. So, hey, now back to the RV power converters. There's 4 major brands in the United States. There's WFCO, which is also called WFCO, or World Friendship Corporation. I think they're getting away from that name, but WFCO, also known as WFCO, WOOFCO, WFCO. And then you have Iota, which is IOTA, and they're just Iota, and then Progressive Dynamics, sometimes called PD, and Parallax. So those are the 4 major brands, and there are other brands out there. Recently I had someone come in with well, they're all made overseas, but these ones definitely were made overseas. They just didn't have the quality that these 4 ones have. These are American companies bringing in their product from, you know, somewhere else, but they have standards that are much higher than some of the stuff that's being brought in that the RV manufacturers are using that I would just call junk. It's a shame they use this kind of stuff, because that's another thing that strikes against this RV industry that makes it look bad when they start putting junk on RVs, when they use products that they know are just cheap, and that's why they're buying them. You know, car manufacturers, I'm going to say, don't always do that. When they do it, they don't get away with it. Cars today are made at a much higher standard, and they put in good products. They want that reputation, where RV manufacturers, you'd think they try to ruin their reputation. It's very odd. Now, I'm not trying to bash the industry. It's just things that people complain about. You know, I hear the complaints. Some So if you have one of these off brands, I'm not telling you to go out and replace it tomorrow with a, more common brand like the 4 I mentioned. But if you do have one and it's time to replace it, you're experiencing problems with it, then go with a major brand like Wolfco, Iota, Progressive Dynamics, and Parallax if it'll work in your application. So now I talked to all 4 brands, and each one of them is very proud of their product, although Wolfco, they seem to be the ones that are most in touch with the RV industry at the manufacturing level, from what I gathered through the conversation I had. And they actually are in Indiana, and on their website it even says, if you have a problem, if you're a manufacturer building RVs, if you have a problem or questions, they'll have someone there on site within an hour. And that's pretty impressive. So they're all in. They got skin in the game. They want to make this work for them in the RV industry. And I'm not saying the other 3 companies don't care. Just Wolfco is kind of at a different level, I think. They're really putting that customer satisfaction first. If they satisfy the RV manufacturer and they go to on an assembly line, let's say at Fleetwood, and they're installing something, their converter wrong, they're going to tell them, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need thicker wire, it needs to be closer to the batteries, whatever it might be. Because they want you as the end user, the consumer, the guy who bought the RV, to be happy. They don't want you to have problems with their product because of the way it was installed. And every component manufacturer in the RV industry faces this. Refrigerators with Dometic or Norcold, if let's say Fleetwood, I'm not picking on Fleetwood, just use an example. If they don't follow the instructions and install the refrigerator properly, it can have problems for the life of that RV. So these are things that Wolfco tries to eliminate. Hey, we don't want that on our plate. We want it to be installed right the first time, and then we have a happy builder, we have a happy customer, or the RVer, the end user, whatever term you want to use, you guys. Land me, I own an RV as well. And I happen to have a Parallax power converter in my RV. It's been replaced once. It was originally a Magnatech. It died after about 2 years of use. Put in a Parallax, haven't had any problems since. And Magnatech is no more anyway, so it doesn't matter, at least with the RV products. So anyway, back to the nitty-gritty of the power converters. Like I said, I talked to all 4 manufacturers, and what I came across or came up with is they all are pretty darn close in what they do. They all care about the customer. But Wolfco, I said, stood out a little bit more. Then I talked to, in Iota, they have a concern too, and I'm going to get to this. I'm going to kind of break down each one, and they're not in great detail here. I'm not getting into all the tech specs, which I don't even know if it's necessary. Your converter's your converter. If you have a 55 amp Iota converter and it fails, more than likely you're just going to go back with the same thing or something very comparable. These are interchangeable for the most part. At least the deck mount ones are. Which a deck mount one typically is mounted in a compartment, a cabinet, under the sink, in the kitchen, in a cabinet. They're not a power center, where a power center is usually mounted on a wall. It has all the fuses, its circuit breakers, and the converter built into it. And you can plainly see it when you're inside the RV. It has a plastic face or a metal face, generally brown, sometimes black. Whatever you have, the converter portion of it is all very similar. Each brand has their own strength and weaknesses, if you will, but there's not much there as far as a difference percentage-wise. It's negligible. So I'm going to start off with Iota. That one thing that Iota says that is different about their converter is the circuit board is mounted in such a way to reduce vibration. And I think we all understand vibration ruins electronics. Vibration ruins a lot of things, but a circuit board, it could definitely ruin it much quicker. So they claim that their circuit board is mounted in a better configuration, and I'm not doubting their claim. It might be, and that's fine. it's all their converters are tested for reliability, which everybody does that. You know, they all come from overseas, probably China, which I'm going to get sidetracked here for a moment. If you have things to buy now, whether it's RV related or household, cars, buy now. This is the month of November. Tariffs are going up. If you're not aware of the trade war that's happening, you know, the United States is paying heavy tariffs right now on things being brought in. It's about 10% as I speak. These tariffs are getting passed on to you, the consumer. You're paying for it in your prices. Prices are increasing. Come January, there's a possibility it's going to go up 25%. So buy your things now if you need to make big purchases. I read someplace that one of the car manufacturers, it was a Toyota mid-range car, would be $9,000 more after the first of the year. Washers and dryers, 25 to 60% more after the first of the year. So if it happens, things are going to go up drastically. So you might want to plan ahead. If you can, buy things now. But anyway, back to Iota converters. They're tested for reliability. They're, you know, they randomly test them. They test them at the shop. They acquire feedback from dealerships that have problems with them, the manufacturers, from the end user. So they're building up a database, and everybody's doing that. Iota's not the only one doing it. Now, one thing different about Iota is their converters, their deck mount converters, are screwed together, which would be the DLS series. They're screwed together rather than riveted together, and they do repair them. But don't get your hopes up. They're not going to repair every converter that comes through their door. So if your converter fails and you don't want to spend the $200 or $300, you know, you might, if it's an Iota, you might be able to send it back to them for a repair. But like they said, not everyone can be repaired. You know, there's only so much they can do. It's, you know, whether it's worth the expense or not. You know, years ago, converters would get repaired all the time. You know, dealerships would stock repair parts because it was very simple. There was just a few things that went wrong. I can't think of the brand. It was a very popular brand and easy to repair, but it hasn't been around in a long, long time, you know. But those days are gone. Now everything's throwaway, if you will. And converters are the same way. If they fail, they're throwaway. Even the Iota ones, I hate to say it, even though they're screwed together, I don't know if I'd waste my time sending it back to them, paying for the shipping there, the shipping back, and a repair. I didn't ask them what the average repair was, but to me it just seemed pointless. If you're on a tight budget and you absolutely have to have that converter repaired, then that might be an option for you, but you can certainly call them first and get an idea what it's going to cost if they can repair it. Now, the Iota series, they have the DLS series, they have what is called the IQ4 Smart Charge Control. It plugs into the DLS series converter, and you can basically control how it's going to charge your batteries. It's pretty cool, and it works for each type of battery. So if you have an acid flooded battery, or you have an AGM, or you have a gel cell battery, you can get a different IQ4 for each battery. So you don't change the converter, you change this module that plugs into it, which is kind of unique because batteries are changing. More and more people are going to the AGM batteries or the gel batteries. You know, I've tried them all in my RV, and I haven't seen any great difference. You know, the flood batteries, obviously you have to check the water in them from time to time. They corrode more than the AGM batteries or a gel battery, but I've tried them all, and I just went back to the flooded batteries. To me, it didn't seem like it was that huge of a difference. Now, maybe that's just me, and I was living in Arizona too, so things didn't last as long period there. Living here in Montana now, the life of the battery might be much more impressive. So I'm not saying, you know, the flooded batteries are the way to go, but they are the most common battery out there. That's what most people have. That's what most people replace or go back to. So the Iota converter, you don't have to change the converter if you change to a different type of batteries. You can just change the IQ4 and it adjusts itself to that new battery, which is pretty cool. So you're looking at a $20 option rather than a $200 or $300 option to adjust to the new batteries. And it is important that the converter does work with the batteries and charges them up properly. Now, the Iota also has a DLS X series converter, which I haven't seen available to me yet through our distributors. Doesn't mean that it isn't out there. Looks like it's fairly new. They have a different charging system as well. It's the IQ4-X. Same thing as the other one. It's just a little more advanced in technology. And the manufacturers are doing this. They're carrying a couple different types of converters, and they're adjusting to the technologies. And as a new converter comes out, more than likely the older one will eventually phase itself out of the system. I can't say that 100% sure. I didn't talk to them about it, but that's kind of how it works. Well, it doesn't mean you have something outdated, you got to get rid of it. Converters now are very smart. But Iota, they seem to have their game together. They're into it. They build a lot of converters for other markets other than the RV market. And remember this, the most converters, if not all of them, can just run 12-volt appliances. It's just a power converter, and they happen to charge a battery. So if you don't have a battery in line, but you need to run your 12-volt lights or fans, whatever it might be, the converter can do that. So if your battery dies or whatever, you have to take it out for some crazy reason or it blows up, you can run without a battery. Or if you just want a nice little converter in your shop for testing, something goes from 110 volt to 12 volt, and these things are nice. And all the brands, or the 4 brands I'm talking about, have clean DC power. It's very clean. It's not dirty power, so you're not going to get interference from radios, lights, and things like that, other electrical items in your RV that have to be on at the same time. So the converters, there's a lot of information. I will have this on my website at radioarizonarv.com and also arizonarvpartscenter.com. On the left-hand side, there's a link that says helpful RV articles, and I put everything there. Anything that I feel is worthwhile goes there. And same with Radio Arizona RV. And all the manufacturers want to extend the life of the battery. That's their goal. It's not to diminish, but to extend. And they seem to be very sincere about that. And I would say their products display that. Now I'm going to move on to WFCO here, WFCO. Like I talked about, they're at the factory with the manufacturers, the OEMs as they're called, installing these on the assembly lines or the assembly floor, making sure they're getting installed right. They have quality control. Everybody has quality control. They seem to be a little more into it. They're checking more product at a regular basis. Their warranty rate or return rate is less than 1%. That's a pretty small mark or percentage, less than 1%. So that's almost nothing. That's not anything to even be concerned about. But it concerns them because they want to keep it that way. They don't want to be up at 5%, 10%. They want to stay below 1%. And I think everybody I talk to is about the same way. They're a very low return rate, which is very good. And I don't know if I mentioned it already, but even what I sell here in the store, I've never had a converter come back. And like I said, I stock Progressive Dynamics. I sell the other brands as well, but I've never had a converter come back. So that means to me it installed, it worked, and at least went out of the warranty period, or the customer just took care of it on their own, which is nice, but I wasn't involved into it. So that means these converters are doing a good job, and they're not having a large defect rate. Now, the WFCO one thing that stood out to me is the fan comes on before the converter ever gets hot. And that extends the life of the converter, keeps it cooler when it needs to be cool rather than waiting until it warms up. And each manufacturer does this a little bit different. They all have their own theory on this, and I don't think there's a right or wrong here. I think they all have it figured out what works best for their converter. And each one of them is going to find a sales point to go against their competition. And that's, it's competition, right? So that's what they're going to do. So WFCO's thing is their fan comes on before the converter gets hot. And, when you think about that, that makes sense. That's good. A lot of things, though, get hot. Computers get hot, and then the fan comes on, and computers last for years. So I don't know how much of a difference it makes overall. But, cooling is always better. It seems to be that way. And again, there's no interference with lights, TVs, anything else. These are FCC approved. They comply with FCC rules, so that doesn't happen. And Wolfco also makes lower sections for the power center type converters as well. And so that's a replacement converter for the power center. They call it a lower section because it's just the converter section. It's always at the bottom of the converter, the breakers and the fuse panel, or the fuse panels above the converter. So it's called a lower section. Makes sense. And, I would say Wolfco has a great product. And one thing I have found with Wolfco converters are a little bit smaller on the deck mount ones. And a lot of customers that have a Wolfco deck mount converter, that's a mouthful, isn't it? Wolfco deck mount converter. All right. So anyway, back to that. So they're a little smaller, and sometimes they have to go back with the same one because it's the only thing that'll fit in that compartment or wherever it is. Progressive dynamics sometimes are a little bit wider, depending on how you look at it. The dimensions are, sometimes bigger, so they won't always be a good replacement. And so we sell a lot of Wolfcos just because of that. They're built in, put in a specific spot that only they will fit back in, which, that's fine. Wolfco, I don't think is going anywhere, and you can find them. It's not like it's a unique converter now. You're going to be searching the world for it, trying to find one. So I wouldn't be concerned about that. And if you have a Wolfco and it's in a tight compartment, as long as there's air in there, I don't think I would think, plan on making it bigger so something else would fit. I don't think I'd go down that road. Then Progressive Dynamics, they have the 9100 series and the 9200 series. They're very identical. They look the same, except they have their total charge management system. On the 9200 series, it's built in, so it's part of the converter. And on the 9100 series, it's not built in. There's a connector that's built into the converter that you can add the total charge management system, which allows you to charge it in 4 different ways. And all these converter manufacturers, or the 4, I say all, but the 4 I'm talking about, they either charge in 3, 4, or 5 different stages, depending on the brand. And it depends on the RV, whether it's in storage, heavy usage, mild usage, the health of the batteries. And I think they all have it figured out. It's just they name it something different, maybe have one more little feature, one less feature. But I think they all do a very good job. And I'm going to say it's very similar. That might make their ears, ring or burn, but I think it's very similar. Now, one thing to keep in mind, and people ask us, why does the 9100 not have it built into it, and you have to buy this add-on for the total charge management system? Well, it's simple. Some people aren't using these converters in an RV application where they want to make sure that it's charging the battery in the different ways. The converter in itself can just be a 12-volt source, and so it might be used for that. Maybe they're using it in pieces of equipment where they don't need, it's not charging batteries, it's just running 12-volt accessories and something. There's a lot of different applications for that. So that's why it doesn't come with it, where the 9200 series comes with it. It's part of the package. It's built in, and it is on a cable, so it is remote, so you could actually mount it someplace visible to yourself if you wanted to see it. I would just put it where the converter is, and like Progressive Dynamics says, you really don't need to do anything. If you have the total charge management system, whether it's the add-on to the 9100 or what's built in the 9200, if you just leave it, you're fine. There is a time where you might want to put it in boost mode. If your batteries are drained down and you want to get them charged up a little bit quicker, you can do that. But you have to remember to take it out of boost mode. Otherwise, it'll be stuck in that, and you do not want that. So the converter is best to be left alone. If you have the 9100 or you buy one, you're buying a good converter. It's going to charge the batteries. It's going to do a very good job. It's just not going to be able to adjust to the different levels the battery might need. So that's where that add-on of the total charge management system is. It just plugs into it. It's real simple. It's an oversized phone connector, more like a computer type connector. Real easy. So, and it's also called the Charge Wizard, which that's the short name for it. So that's progressive dynamics. And then coming up last here, I am going to be able to keep this in a half an hour for this one episode, which is really what I wanted to do. I'm talking kind of fast. I'm not getting into greater detail for each one, but the parallax is the last one. They make power centers and lower sections. They don't, well, they have deck mount converters. It's the Temperature brand, or their brand. And their deck mount converters are nice converters, but I have not seen a lot of those in RVs. I haven't had people calling up wanting to replace them very often. It's mostly the power centers where it has the circuit board, the circuit breakers, the fuse board, and then the lower section is where the converter is. So they make the power centers, and then they make the replacement lower sections where the converter is. If it goes bad, they do that. Parallax has been around for a long time as well. They make a good product, and they have other things like auto transfer switches, different items related to the 110-volt side of an RV. I'm not going to really go on anymore about Parallax. I think they just make power centers for the most part, and that's where it's at, and they make a good product. They have the different phases of charging. They don't have any add-on pendants or modules. It's just all built in, pretty straightforward. Put it in, let it go. Like I said, that's what I have in my RV. So you can pretty much just trust it. And you know, the power centers, the lower section is usually what goes bad. The whole power center very rarely needs to be replaced unless there's a fire, or, you know, you have a bunch of bad connections and you start melting where the breakers are, the bus bars, where the breakers attach, or the fuse holders. Doesn't happen very often. Or you might just decide, I want to just upgrade the whole thing, put in a new one, maybe add another circuit or something. But all in all, you can just replace the lower section on your power center and call it a day. But the deck mount ones are what I see the most of, people coming through the door and diagnosing them. And ultimately, if you check it with a voltmeter or a test light, a voltmeter is always better because it's going to show you the voltage. It's not just going to light up like a test light. If there's no 12 volts coming out of it, it's essentially bad. I mean, that's the simple diagnosis. Each company has technical data on how to diagnose their converters. And I'm going to put a plethora of this on our website where you can look at this, and you should be able to just diagnose it by going to our website. So that'd be ArizonaRVPartsCenter.com and RadioArizonaRV.com. I'll have all that links to it under this episode, or in this episode on the website. And I do that because it keeps it simple. You know, who wants to go to all these different websites? And I've said this before. You know, it's tiring to have to go to this website, that website, to look things up, to figure out what you have. You can go to one place. If you're, you know, kind of in the market for a converter, you can look at them on our website, compare them, look at the differences. You can email me. You can call me. I'm more than happy to help. I talk to a million people a week, it seems like, helping them with their problems in their RVs. I mean, I get phone calls all day, every day, emails, texts, everything. So feel free to contact me. So I hope this information helps. It basically it levels the playing field. So if you have a progressive dynamics and it fails, you're going to feel good about just putting another progressive dynamics in there. If you have a Woofco and you can get another Woofco and put it on there, you're going to feel good about it, whatever the brand is, Iota. So it's not like you have to do now wonder, should I get another brand? What should I do? You know, should I upgrade? Basically stick with what you have. If it failed over, you know, if it's not failing prematurely within a year or two, more than likely it's been installed properly, the wiring's proper, everything's good about it. And one thing here that I get asked quite a bit, someone might come in the store with a 55 amp converter, and we don't have the 55 amp in stock, and they need to get it in there today. They can't wait. Now, talking to the experts, they all say, you know, in a technical sense, you can put in a 65 amp, but you couldn't put in a 95 amp. There's no, you know, that would cause other problems, but a 65 amp you could get away with. You know, but they say technically you have to see what your system requirements are and see if a 65 amp would be, you know, sufficient and work properly. But ultimately, they all said, you can go ahead and do that. It's kind of like they're just covering themselves to make sure that everything's just so, because that's what they're into. They're looking at this like it's coming off the assembly line. They're not looking at it like it's you stuck someplace and you need a converter. And so if you have to go to a different size converter, you can go up, but don't go up a lot. 55 to 65 is okay, 45 to 55, or if it's 45 to 50, or, you get the point here. But you don't want to go down. Don't go backwards. Don't ever go backwards. And that's from them. That's the experts. And that's how I've always sold them. That's how I've thought on it. And we've never had a problem. And believe me, if there were issues, I would know. I would hear about it because we sell a lot of converters. I talk to a lot of people and make a lot of sales with converters. And I tell people, if you have any problems, you let me know. That's part of the customer service thing that we try to do in my business model. So that's going to wrap it up for the converters. And I just want to remind you, the next episode is going to be about RV covers and battery storage and LP detectors. Whether it all fits into one episode, I'm not sure. I've gone over my 30 minutes now. So this is Eric Stark with Radio Arizona RV. Go to radioarizonarv.com, fill out or sign up for the newsletter. It's very simple process. I won't spam you. You won't fill your inbox. And then I'm going to have links to all this information on Radio Arizona RV with much more than what I talked about today, and links to our website where you can compare the converters side by side. And all these converters I talked about the brands have free shipping. So that's a pretty good deal. The prices are low with free shipping. So check it out at ArizonaRVPartsCenter.com. There'll be links to it from Radio Arizona RV. There always is. I know all this .com, all these websites get confusing. And you can call me at 406-961-8688, or you can text me on that same number. That's our landline, but we do get text messages on there. So you can send pictures, you can ask questions via text if that's easier for you. We implemented that a couple months ago, and it's worked out very well. People are sending text messages with pictures of their power gear things, awning problems. So it seems to be much easier than doing the email thing. So, hey, this is, again, Eric Stark with Radio Arizona RV. I want to thank you for listening today, listening to this episode about the 4 major brands of power converters: Wolfco, Iota, Progressive Dynamics, and Parallax. Any questions, call me.